discussion of Nigeria in the news. Hopefully you guys all saw the flyers. And what I'm going to try to do is get out of the way of the panelists and let them talk a little bit more. But I have a few questions for them. So as I introduce you guys, feel free to just come on up here and take a seat. The first person we have with us today is Mr. Carl Luna. He's a human rights activist and a former student leader who served as the Chief Mobilization Officer of the National Association of Nigerian Students in 1993. He's a publisher of Republic Reporters, an online news agency here in New York City. And Mr. Luna has been living in the States for about 15 years on political asylum after he was declared wanted by the Babangida military regime. So he's been actively working based in the U.S. On the Republic Reporters. So welcome, Carl. And Mr. Soare, I hope I'm not butchering your name. Please correct me if I am. Is the founder of Sahara Reporters, which is also another online community of international reporters and social advocates dedicated to bringing commentaries, features, news reports from the Nigerian African perspective. He's a graduate from the University of Lagos in Colombia, and he was recently highlighted in the New York Times article for his work, bringing in photos of current events in Nigeria, especially the attack in Abuja and so on. And so, you know, we're really excited to welcome you here into the discussion as well. The next person, after I will give them a round of applause. Next person is Osa Sasaratin. She's a Master of Public Administration candidate, studying development practice here at SIPA. Her career objective is to be at the fore of developing innovative business and national development solutions. And her research interests include energy, resource management, public-private interactions, and the macroeconomy. She hopes to return to her country, Nigeria, to work as a consultant in entrepreneurship and advising on public policy. So welcome, Osa. Yeah, And finally, we have Ms. Kalechi Andy. She's also a master's candidate here at SIPA, specializing in international energy management policy. Her previous experience includes her work as an attorney, as well as work in the financial services industry in Nigeria. So welcome to you. So there are two, you know, obviously as we listen to the news, as we watch TV, as we browse the online hubs, we've heard a lot about Nigeria lately, especially about two key issues, the fuel subsidy situation that was ongoing throughout November to recently last month, and as well as Boko Haram, which has been a sect that has carried out a number of attacks in northern Nigeria. So one of the first things, I just put, this is my own little summary here, so you can kind of just ignore it. But the first thing I wanted to put out to the group is, if we go across, if you could give us just a little bit of your perspective. First, let's start with the fuel subsidy. What you think that the root causes have been of some of this situation. What was the atmosphere like in Nigeria, especially for students when you were there this semester? And just kind of give us your perspective on the issues, the root causes, and how they started off. So, anybody want to start?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carl Luna. I graduated at Columbia University class 2004 at Teachers College. Like she already stated, the issue of what is called Nigeria is complex, as you all read in the news media and social media as well. Let me go to oil subsidy. First and foremost, oil subsidy is a scam. It does not exist. It was created by the cabal that have been running the country since the 60s, when the British handed over the government to their leaders. Oil subsidy in Nigeria, oil was discovered in the 50s, and British left, and since then the Civil War took place, the Biafra-Nigerian Civil War in the 60s, 1967 to 1970. Since that time, the West, which is dominated by the Yorubas, and the North, by the Hausas Fulani oligarchy, has been controlling the oil industry. And actually, if you protest, they bomb the villages and oil spill everywhere. So basically, the military then that ran the society of the country at that time basically share the oil blocks among themselves and their cronies. And what they do is that they claim that they're going to supply oil to the country. Before I get to that, Nigeria has about like 4 oil refineries, and none of them is functioning at full capacity. And that's done intentionally, basically because they want to make profit. So they drill oil in collaboration with some of the European countries, British Petroleum, F Corporation, Exxon Oil from here, many other foreign oil companies in the continent that come, or in European and America, North America, that comes into the Nigeria to drill. So they collaborate with them. Some of them are being bribed, they bribe officials, millions of dollars to basically get the contract. But Nigeria has oil and gas, and they pump like 3.5 million per day. And the people live in abject poverty, below $1 per day. So you can imagine the suffering of the masses. So the oil subsidy, they give this contract to their friends, whatever, and they're going to supply oil. So they take the oil, petroleum, the crude, they take it overseas, they refine it, they resell it to their own country members. That's how ridiculous the place is. And when they resell it, they try to bring it back. So they don't actually bring it back, they do all the paperwork. For that, recently, the central bank governor, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, mentioned that basically the paper trail shows that they claim they supply almost like 15 a day, and the area that's supposed to contain 15 a day only carries like 3 or 4 containers. So what happened to the remaining 10 containers? So basically they ship it to neighboring countries in the West African coast, and then they collect the oil subsidy money, basically. Oil subsidy is to reduce the price, basically, so to speak, but that's not the case. And so that's what we're going through right now, and that's what people, when it was removed, so to speak, people protested, and then they occupied Nigeria protest.
Thank you, Carl. So anybody else, did you want to give a perspective as well?
Let me just put it down this way, that Nigeria is a country run by its own enemies, and that's the truth. When I say its own enemies, it has a cabal that comes from the west, south, east, every part of the country, and about less than 1% of them. And
sorry, you said cabal. Can you?
When I say cabal, it's like the mafia. The mafia runs Nigeria. Nigeria is like the private estate of a mafia. And what they do basically is that they set up and stage all kinds of scams. And one of the scams is, of course, this oil subsidy. To break it down to our level here, because I was a CIPA student, by the way, as of 2003. I used to sit at the back, challenging CIPA professors who thought the whole world is New York. I never teach you anything beyond New York City. So this cabal, this criminal mafia in the country, set up all kinds of scams, and one of it is the oil subsidy scam. And basically what they do is that they claim that they are subsidizing oil on the basis of liters. I mean, there are 4 liters of gas in 1 gallon. So But there's nothing like that. Like our colleague here mentioned, supposed to be 4 refineries. Only about 2 of them are actually working to some reasonable capacity. They destroy the refineries intentionally. So they now give themselves contracts to import gas, that's gasoline, back into Nigeria. And then they set up a subsidy fund that what it means is that if you bring back 4 barrels of gasoline to Nigeria, the Nigerian government will pay you, say, $5 per gallon because, you know, they are subsidizing you. But the truth is that, one, they inflate the number of gasoline they bring back into the country. We found out even about 3 weeks ago that they were importing about 24 million liters that nobody could explain who is buying them. But they get subsidy for it. So it got so ridiculous that they started importing water. And yes, this is not a joke. We import water. They'll go to the high seas with a tank and get water, scoop water from the high seas and import it back to Nigeria. They'll bring paperwork to the customs and they'll clear them. And when they pay them the subsidy, they take the water back and pour it back into the ocean. It is not funny. This is how bad the oil scam is going on. But that's how Nigeria is run. Generally, and we found out. One of the results that just came out as of yesterday was that over 112 million Nigerians live on less than $1 a day. But Nigeria exports 2.6 million barrels of oil. In New York, as of today, it's $102 per barrel of oil. If you multiply that, that means Nigeria is making, on average, on a day, $200 million per day. If you multiply that by 365 days, because when you are importing oil, gas, there's no holidays, no weekends. You sell every day, right? Because America needs to be consuming what's, you know, because of your bad habits. So they bring this every day, and it's 200 million, and you multiply that, Nigeria makes billions of dollars. In fact, we have made over $500 billion have been stolen from Nigeria since 1960 by this cabal, the mafia we're talking about. And what they do is that they just share the money amongst themselves. But bottom line, not to drag this too long, is that some of it is also driven by, you know, economic policies driven by the World Bank and the IMF. I call them the international monetary fraud because I used to see them and challenge them in this same classroom. You know, I tell them, if you go to 54 countries in Africa and your economic policies have failed in all of them, except Botswana, what are you still doing? If I were to be a CPA student and you give me 50 questions, 54 questions, and I fail 53, do I graduate? So why do you keep talking about policies that don't work? So they'll go to Africa, and of course they will send one woman or a man to Africa who they claim went to Harvard or Columbia. I'm glad I came here too. You will go to Africa and tell Africans, oh, you don't need subsidies, you don't need to support the poor, because giving people subsidy means that you cannot have money to sustain, you know, other economic policies. It's all fallacy. It's a lie. Okay? The lie there is that there is no time that supporting poor people actually make countries poor. It makes the country better. Look at the US economy, for example. How much money has Obama given to the oil companies in terms of tax credits? He gave money to, you know, GM and all of that. All of them are bouncing back based upon subsidy. The US economy is subsidizing the auto industry, subsidizing the oil industry. It's subsidizing, farmers are being subsidized in this country. And when you subsidize your farmers, they send their wheat to Nigeria and we buy the bread. And you're happy here. But when it's our turn to take subsidy from what you get from us, you tell us, oh, it's a bad economic policy. So I just want to make that point to you as students of economics and politics, or, you know, socio-economic politics, to understand that it's also an international scam, the oil subsidy, and that's what led to, like I said, Occupy Nigeria.
So I'd just like to comment. There's a lot of fraud involved in the process of giving subsidies to the companies that import. And that was part of the rationale of the government in wanting to remove it, because they felt that, you know, the process was corrupt and that the people getting the subsidies were really the rich people. And so fuel was at about 60-something naira. When they decided to remove the subsidy, the government subsidized about 90 naira per liter, which is roughly over, I think, 50 cents.
Like 50 cents.
Yeah, roughly over 50 cents. So they decided to remove that subsidy,
and the fuel price went to 140.
Which is like 9%.
Yeah, about over 100% increase. Admittedly, that there is corruption in the subsidy process, in the process that companies get government money for importing fuels. But at the same time, the government was not cognizant of the fact that millions of Nigeria, even at 60 naira per liter, are already living beneath the poverty line. So removing the subsidy as they did, without appropriate economic structures at the time they did, was really, it was really provocative, if I may say. And I was in Nigeria at that time, and a lot of people, you know, there was so much momentum in protesting against that government action that I had never seen before. People that normally were not interested in government affairs, everybody started talking about politics, everybody started reading the papers. You know, normal people that were not just concerned mobilized themselves together to confront the government on that action, and eventually there was a compromise reached on reducing the amount of the subsidy that was to be removed.
So I also was in Nigeria over the holidays, and I think what I can contribute to this is more from the standpoint of just experiencing everything that happened. There had been a lot in the news about the fuel subsidy removal. The government had already started to kind of sensitize the public about what was going to happen. So, I mean, certainly it was in the discussions, people were talking about it, people were preparing for it to some degree. However, I don't think anyone anticipated that, you know, on New Year's Day, after spending all their Christmas money, that they were going to be told that essentially the price of fuel was going to be like more than doubled for, you know, for the typical consumer. And basically there was no, like Osas said, there was no, they didn't try to absorb they didn't try to create some shock absorbers within the system to, you know, so that people wouldn't just immediately feel the impact of that immediate subsidy removal. And on top of that, you have a government, you have a citizenry that implicitly distrust their government. So while the government is making all these great arguments and going on these roadshows with the finance minister and the CBN governor, explaining all the economics behind taking away this fuel subsidy, people are like, okay, so you're talking about taking out the fuel subsidy, so what are you going to use the funds for? And how do you know you're going to use it for what you say you're going to use it for? And a lot of those, like in terms of sensitizing the public, they didn't really do that. And that disconnect in communication, I think, was very significant in really getting people fired up. And one of the things that I really enjoyed seeing, and I use the term enjoy, was a lot of my peers, a lot of people who are typically very, it's a word I came up with, disapathetic when it comes to things of, that impact the national. It's just, you see so many things go wrong, and then after a while you get cynical, and then after a while you're just like, you just take care of yourself on your own, and then you just keep moving. And all of a sudden these people started to, you started to see the fire come back. You started to see them taking an interest again. You started to hear them having certain kinds of conversations, amongst themselves, and then you started to see them leave their comfort zone and go out. Yes, maybe some of them went only as far as Falmouth, which is a kind of still a more comfortable neighborhood, so to speak, but they went out, and that was significant. And I think that scared the government because I don't think they'd ever seen people mobilize that way, across social classes, across, economic, status, whatever. People were coming out and they were saying this is wrong, and this is not, this is not sustainable. I did not find that the government removing, I guess only a part of the subsidy as an adequate solution, because I felt like it was just, it was more just putting a Band-Aid over something that was it's like a big gash, and you just pull a Band-Aid over it and hope everybody goes home. And I also did not appreciate the way the government handled the fact that there were citizens who were protesting peacefully. And they, they actually had military presence, and I heard there was actually some violence against peaceful protesters. So, as a lawyer, I mean, that just, I think I just, I felt very, a lot of anger about that, because I saw people coming up and speaking out and saying something was wrong, and they were doing it in an orderly fashion, and I felt like the government needs to at least respect that. That's the whole idea of democracy. So we have a civilian government, and then they're still inciting the military on their citizens who are not doing anything except speaking their mind. So I did not think that was appropriate.
Thank you. So we'll get to questions in a second, and we'll get to questions in a second, and well, also my next question to the panel would be to help us understand what the implications of that, especially with the poor who are feeling the effects of this, the compounding of the effect of also Boko Haram going on in Nigeria, and the attacks of having all these things kind of come at them at the same time. But before you answer that, I want to show a quick video and then get your reaction to that as well. So keep your questions, start writing them down to the panel as we Go ahead, Carl, if you wanted to expand on whatever you were saying.
Yeah, basically I was going to rebuttal a little bit on what she mentioned. The oil subsidy thing was a scam. We all have said that, and we agree. But what happened was, like, the government, you can't fight corruption with corruption. It's impossible. Okay, the government itself, what you call government, is corrupt. And they were placed there by former military dictators who actually fronting for them. So what they did was that when the Boko Haram was doing their bombing thing across the north, so they took advantage of that people will not pay attention on other issues in the country. And that's how they removed the oil specifically. So we just want to mention that. That's they removed it, they're hoping that people will focus on the bombing without paying attention on the subsidy. So it was a trick.
All right.
Actually, I've heard that it was, they actually were hoping that they were going for the element of surprise, actually, more so. Like, I don't think they wanted people to be too prepared for the actual. So, I mean, not so much, I mean, the Boko Haram probably provided some kind of
opportunity for them winning.
Sorry. Oh, I have those down. Well, maybe we'll have to do this without the sound, so skip the video for now. But anyway, okay, so in that sense, why don't you give us your other takes as well on Boko Haram, and we'll continue this discussion that way.
I want to pass this, if you want to look at this, we published this, it was sent to us, we published them. That gives you an idea, the whole issue about Boko Haram and whom they are, and who funds them. Okay, so you may want to look at that. That might be helpful as well.
So Laurie, did you have some thoughts on that?
No, I mean, generally, what I tell people about Nigeria is that it's a country that is badly mismanaged. It's, as a matter of fact, a failed state, if you don't mind me saying that.
Conceptual foundation.
Yes. Yeah, if you don't mind me saying that, one of the reasons why I say that without equivocation happened yesterday when there was a bombing in Kaduna. And there were two bombs. One had exploded and people surrounded the bombs, but they created a perimeter to protect ordinary citizens from coming around there. And a Nigerian police officer who works in the anti-bomb unit walked across to the unexploded bomb in t-shirts and of course, his normal dress. And a metal detector, the type you see in the clubs, and that's where you know this country is really, really failed. And he got there, put the metal detector in between his legs, and started to disconnect the bomb with his hands. And he exploded. The bomb exploded right there, and this guy died right in front of thousands of people who earlier were cheering him. And when he died, well, of course, the music changed. The reason why I say that is that this year, the Nigerian government is going to spend $7.8 billion on security. This year, that's what is in their own budget. And it takes 17,000, I found out before we got here, to buy an EOD body armor. The same time that a Thai police officer used about a month ago to detonate a bomb. The bomb exploded the same way, but just threw him, and after 5 seconds he walked away from the bomb. But the Nigerian guy has joined his ancestors as we speak today. You know, the reason is that the money that was meant for body armor for a country that is in the midst of terrorism has been embezzled by the top echelon of the police. It's been embezzled by members of the National Assembly in Nigeria. By the way, the Senate President of Nigeria is paid more money than Obama, his salary. You don't want to talk about pecs. They just bought themselves vehicles last week. You know, that's why I'm saying it's entirely a failed state. When they're talking about subsidy or who gets subsidized, they admitted openly in Nigeria that the subsidy process is a criminal process. The president said, yeah, we know the guys who are sharing the money. But the guys come to the president's office every day. We know their names. We publish it every day. If you see the president next time, he's in the company of these guys. They are the people who are in his shadow cabinet. They are his kitchen cabinet people. So it's a criminal enterprise. And that's why you see Nigerian people were very agitated during the occupied Nigeria. Nigeria was going in the direction of a revolution. And that was what we were praying for. That's why I was praying for, that we will have a revolution. And that was where we were pushing through social network, you know, Twitter and Facebook. Everybody was up in arms against the government. Before, of course, they brought the army and put an end to that. But I have said, and I'm convinced that that was a rehearsal. The real, you know, show is coming.
So I just want to say something about Boko Haram, just to give context. It's basically an Islamic extremist group that has its roots in northeastern Nigeria. And for me, I think that Boko Haram is an effect. It's not a cause. And I think the major, what's the word, facilitator for them is the high inequality in the north that makes it possible for young unemployed men to be brainwashed into schemes like this. Just to give you a bit of numbers, like the percentage of male educated in northeastern Nigeria is 65.5%. But in Nigeria, like the Nigerian average is about 27%. I'm sorry. I think the percentage of males not educated in northeastern Nigeria is 53%, while the Nigerian average of non-educated males is 27%. So you can see the disconnect. The poverty rate in northeastern Nigeria is the highest in Nigeria. It has the lowest Human Development Index. It has the lowest gender development measure. On every measure of development, northeastern Nigeria lags behind. So I think that cumulative factors have made it a breeding place for a group like Boko Haram. And solving Boko Haram goes beyond tackling like the current members of Boko Haram sect. Because even if you find them and arrest them, another sect can grow up. You really need to dig deep into the problems of isolation of northeast Nigeria from mainstream Nigeria, and to see the way to engage them into development before we can see any real solution to that problem.
Two questions. One, I think it was in 2008, there was a similar program where I believe some of the young men who didn't have work were and trained and I don't want to say rehabilitated, but put back into mainstream and given vocational training and given some sort of compensation. Yeah. Do you think, I mean, we don't want to throw money around, obviously, but do you think that solving the inequality issue would help alleviate some of the stress that is being caused by Boko Haram? Or is it possible that it is also still very much a religious issue? As the video would have shown, you know, the conflict between Muslim and Christian. But there, you know, you see that, you know, even still there are people who are looking out for peaceful cooperation between the two religions. So just your thoughts on whether, you know, does the religion problem have to be solved first, or is it poverty completely? Are there more areas that should be explored?
Can I answer that? I don't think it is basically a religious problem. Like in the south of Nigeria, there are Muslims and Christians peacefully coexisting. So I think it's a political problem with religious, that's just my thinking, with religious undertones or with a religious cover. So it's not a problem of religion, because even the Islamic leaders have denounced Boko Haram as being anti-Islamic. So I think there are even some rumor that we have high-level northern Nigerian leaders sponsoring this group to make Nigeria non-governable for President Jonathan. So I think it's a political problem, though there are religious overtones, and we might need dialogue between the two religions to aid the solution, but it's not totally
Let me just throw in my own 2 cents here, and I agree with you on the issue of inequality. When a country has this kind of amount of economic and political discontent, they will come out in different formats. Before we had Boko Haram, there used to be the Niger Delta insurrection. They weren't Christians or Muslims. They were young people who had decided, in fact, they had armed them during elections to be thugs for the politicians. And when the politicians didn't take care of them anymore, they used the arms to now start seizing oil workers and all that. If you go to the eastern part of Nigeria, there was a time you couldn't even take a body to be buried back home in the east, because kidnappers would kidnap you and kidnap even the dead body. You know, on the second day after there was a Boko Haram attack, there was also an attack in the community in the east, I think in Ebonyi, where 50 people were killed within a day. You know, because this is how discontent, you know. What I tell people is that most of Nigeria's problem that has to do with security is a law enforcement problem. How does somebody buy bomb, fertilizer, and assemble bomb for months, and there's no police who comes to ask you what you are doing, you know? It's because if you carry a weapon of mass destruction in Nigeria in the trunk of your car, you can drive around Nigeria and be giving $20 to 20 naira, they call it, to the police, and you pass any checkpoint. I went to Nigeria in November, you know, even though I'm a wanted man. I was filming policemen, you know, like, they don't care. They just want to collect that bribe. That's what is most important to them. And I was mentioning failed state, I see how people cringe. You know, I was on an interview about 3 years ago with one of these, you know, experts who go to Africa for a few months and come and tell us they're experts. And I said Nigeria was going in the direction of Pakistan. She was cringing on, this was filmed on a CUNY TV program. Oh, Nigeria is not that bad yet, you know. It's just some little issue. I said, we're going there, it's just a matter of time. The bus stop, we are competing now with Pakistan in terms of religious crisis. I don't have any doubt that there's a religious crisis in the country, because when people are discontent, they will have to find somewhere where they draw the strength of their anger ideologically or religiously. Because otherwise, you can't leave your house strapped with a bomb strapped to your body and thinking that you are going to have some 16 virgins. You know, I mean, the finest guy on earth doesn't have 2. Why would you go to a place to have 16? It must be some kind of delusion that makes you think that when people draw that from religion, some people draw it from some ideological, some people just draw it from things that are happening around them. That's what they call conviction. But you cannot, like, erase Boko Haram by erasing Islam. You know, I think George Bush found out that with terrorism already, right? You know, the war against terrorism. You can't. What you can erase it with is finding people something that make them have meaning to their life. You must give integrity back to the people of Nigeria. There's as much, in fact, the northern part of Nigeria is the poorest part of Nigeria. Whereas the leaders in the north have ruled Nigeria for almost a lifetime of Nigeria politically, military, you name it. They've been in power. But what they do is that when they go there, they create this small zone where they have power and the rest of people come and beg. And now they're getting that pushback as well, because after the elections, the people they call Amajiris, you know, the ones that go to madrasas, they want to start burning down the houses of the elites. It's never happened before in the north. So that's where I agree with you, and that's where Boko Haram came from, is that mass discontent. But of course, they draw their strength from religion. Just like somebody would draw his strength, who's in Niger Delta, they call it something like besu, which is something you just tie red clothes around your head and you put some white stuff, and you think that you are bulletproof until you die.
So,
let me say this. Nigeria is a lie. It does not exist. So we shouldn't be pretending to ourselves or lying to ourselves. People don't want to be part of Nigeria. You can't force people to be with you if you don't want to be with you. The Boko Haram said they want their Islamic country. So how are you going to force them to stay with you in what is called Nigeria? Nigeria was created by the British after the 1884 Berlin Conference, what you call it, the partition of Africa. So we shouldn't be pretending to ourselves that we don't know what is going on. So Cabal, that you mentioned, a group of people team up together, the military and some of the corrupt civilians. They want to stay together because they are looting the resources. People don't want to be part of that. You have Biafran Civil War in the 60s. The Igbos want to have their own country, separate from that nonsense. The Yorubas want to do a state. The North, they want to actually implement Islamic laws in its fullness. So what are we talking about?
So are you implying that Nigeria cannot be a country together? Because there are so many African countries where you go to Ghana, you go to Zambia, you go to Ethiopia. There's so many different political factions and religious factions.
That's a different context. That's Ghana. You're talking about this.
No, but I'm just saying in general that in any African country you go, you find different ethnic groups, different, you know, who may or may not agree with the other. But we are still countries that are trying to function.
Country made by who? Created by who? The people never came together and say we want to become this. And they never came together. Like, for instance, we're calling for sovereign national conference. They don't want you to hold. Nobody wants to sit together and discuss whether they want to stay together or not. You can't force someone to be with you when the person doesn't want to be with you.
Can I just respond to, there are plenty of people that share your point of view, that maybe we should split northern and southern Nigeria and everybody. But I don't think at this stage of Nigeria's nationhood, you can divide the country into, we're so interconnected. Like, my father's Benin, my mother's Yoruba, and there are people like that they have northern, they have southern. So how do you want to, like, there's no reasonable guide that we can use to divide the country. I think that we've passed the stage of separating the country based on geography or based on religion. I really don't think that's a plausible solution.
So I think you guys leave us at a very good point to bring in our audience.
Yeah, before you bring in your audience, though, it's very important to say this, because I say this to our friends who agitate for breakup of Nigeria. I don't care if Nigeria stays together or breaks up. Any marriage that doesn't work, let it break up. But that doesn't mean that all the parties to the marriage will be happy in their separate lives. And that's what I tell people. If you have Eastern Nigeria today, you're going to have kidnappers there, you're going to have corrupt people who came from the mainstream Nigeria. You're still going to have that culture of oppression, and there will also still be discontent. So when people are begging or pleading or even wishing for the split of Nigeria, let them understand that wherever their own corner of Nigeria becomes, if we don't deal with the central criminal elements that made Nigeria even break up in the first place, they are going to break up those even smaller particles or entities, and it will be an illusion. I come from the Niger Delta region. That's where I was born and I grew up. And I said to myself, if the Niger Delta region of Nigeria becomes Christmas tree, while the rest of Nigeria is poor, everybody in Nigeria will go to that place. There will be a wide, wide west. That's why every criminal went to California during the gold rush. Because wherever there's resources, it attracts bad people. That's the truth.
Alright. Question.
My name is Ezekiel at the law school. Actually, it's not a question. I just want to make some comments. I think it will not be fair, to divide the issues with fuel subsidy or Boko Haram. My own point is Nigeria's problem is beyond this. These are just
exactly, and that's why they're next to
symptoms of the kind of problem we have in the country.
Right.
You know, whenever I have to discuss Nigeria issue, I always have some kind of like high blood pressure. You know, but the honest truth is, there's something fundamentally wrong with the country. In principle, I don't have a problem with removal of fuel subsidy. I don't have a problem with it.
I do.
It's corrupt. I'm gonna state why I don't have a problem with it. That's why I said in principle. You know, in a country whereby I live in Lagos, virtually everybody who works on the island owns a car. And in the morning, everybody from the mainland will drive to the island. We spend like, I drive my car, my wife drives her own car, my neighbor drives their car, they have a car for their children. You know, we all face the island. And then we spend like 3 hours,
Like 5 hours.
And then when you're going back in the night, you spend the same number of time. We consume so much fuel. There's no efficient transportation system. And, you know, so you can see, and then we have a president who has been acknowledged, you know. In fact, I think he himself admitted that he's the dumbest, you know, person in the world. And then he woke up on Christmas or New Year Day and then decided to give the people, you know, you have not done the basic thing. Although these are still very fair. You know, at times I find it difficult. I pray that it is not so. But, you know, all indication shows that Nigeria has failed. It's not that it's failing. You know, I was reading the news now, the Boko Haram, they bombed the prison today,
Yes.
and then they broke into the prison to set people free.
Yes.
What are we talking about? You know, in Maiduguri, they don't even report bomb blasts anymore. It's like Afghanistan or Iraq, because it's no longer news in Maiduguri.
Yeah.
They bomb every day. People die in Maiduguri every day. In other places, you know, it just happens maybe once in a while. Kaduna is still, it's just like the new spot now. So what are we talking about? And then he has spoken about the cabal. You know, I grew up in Lagos, I grew up in the neighborhood, and, you know, I live with Hausa Yoruba, but I don't think the Nigerian people, as in people, are the problem. I think this cabal people, these families, and then you have all their kids in America, you know, they attend the best schools. And then I went to a public school. I can never, I have a son, my son can never attend a public school in Nigeria. It's not possible, because I'll be crazy. I attended a public school, but you can't take your child to a public school now. So there's so much inequality in the country. You know, people are hungry, and then, I think just yesterday they approved, the National Assembly, they approved a budget to buy armored car for everybody for $100,000 each. You know, the lowest ranking member of the House of Assembly earns more than President Obama. And they pass maybe 5 laws or 6 laws, and most of them are always a corporation act every year. So, you know, my own take is the country is failing, or the country has failed.
That's fair.
And I think the only solution is that we should stop talking about Yoruba, Hausa, or Igbo. And I think the solution, I don't know how it's going to happen. People need to sit down and talk. We live in self-denial. They had a meeting with the president, the leaders from the South, and the Southeast, and told him that, come, you are in trouble. And then the Senate president, who has been in the army forever, said that there's no need for a national conference. We live in denial. And I think the West and the Chinese, you know, everybody is contributory to it. They all stand behind it. They started, people, whether you like it, whether you believe it or not, every region of the country is fully armed.
That's right.
People are buying arms every day. They are waiting for the war.
So how do we, maybe, I mean, it's hard to be here and to talk about these things when you're not there and you're not able to actually be a part of the government or do anything about it. So what kinds of solutions do you think are possible to start to address the issue of the cabal, to start to address the issue of corruption, to start to address...
He has said that you cannot fight corruption with corruption.
Okay.
You know, the National Assembly, everybody knows that it's a joke. You know, most of 90% of the people there were not elected. You know, if you have an army, you will win an election because you are guaranteed. You earn an average of like $4 or $5 million a year officially, being the lowest ranking House of Rep member, without even minus the stealing and the bribe, you know, that you pay. So I don't think they can make any law. I don't think we have a constitution, that's the most useless constitution I've seen in my life. I think the solution is, you know, the people needs to sit down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, that is practically impossible. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know because who is going to represent him? Because some people now, you know, they are taking advantage of the situation like, okay, I'm the Yoruba leader. You have people like Bola Tinubu who is claiming to be the Yoruba leader, somebody who does not even carry, he wasn't even sure of the university he attended in America, whether Chicago State or University of Chicago. Probably forgot. I don't know. So, you know, when you have other regions, people are saying that I am the leader. You know, everybody just wants to take the advantage, you know, of the situation. So, and the country is big. We have over 200 million people. If it's not up to that now. And so, for me, it's difficult. I am from Abeokuta. And the next thing, Obasanjo will come out and say he's the leader of the Egba people. I can't stand it. I will tell you to face. You cannot be my leader. So you see, the problem, as you have said, the solution is a national conference. But you know, I cannot phantom.
Let's go from
It's the solution.
No, what is this national conference going to do? What's the point?
To discuss whether we want to be together or not. There was a civil war. Nobody wants to address the civil war.
Wait, is that to discuss whether you want to be
Yeah,
together or to handle corruption?
That's one way of addressing it. First, do you really have to agree? You have to agree to say we want to be a nation. Nigeria is not a nation.
Let me just jump in.
Let me finish. Nigeria is not a nation. You have regions. Before the British came, they were what you call 3 states or regions. They were independent. They were what you call confederate, so to speak. Independent of each other, but they collaborate. But you don't have a strong central government. It's more like, I mean, they call it civilian government. It's not. It's more like a unitary government where the whole power is centered at the center, basically.
Okay, so one person thinks you should talk about whether to stay a nation or not. Yes.
Let me tell you, I used to be under the illusion that the National Conference can work in Nigeria, and it was an illusion. I'm glad I no longer have that illusion. The truth is that, except the revolution happens in Nigeria, even the National Conference, who is going to represent me there? Is it the same criminals? You know, because don't forget that it will require that either somebody is nominated to go there or he's elected to go there. There is no clean person in Nigeria today that can win an election to represent even himself, talk less of representing a region or a state or a tribe. As you guys have all agreed, who is representing your race? A criminal. Who is representing your race or your tribe is a criminal, most likely the most criminal person in the place. So when we have a national conference, Bola Tinubu is going to represent Yoruba. You are going to send who from the east? Tell me. You don't even know.
Kiwe,
you know,
Kiwe.
will not be allowed to go near the hall. That's what I'm saying. But the honorable men will not be allowed to go near the hall where this conference will take place. Who's going to represent the north? Babangida and all of the criminals. So they come together, just like he said about the meeting today with the president. The guys who you saw at the meeting, can they represent you?
Edwin Clark.
But, okay, Edwin Clark, who was the first person to be convicted of corruption in Nigeria, is representing the whole Niger Delta region at the meeting that took place today. So you expect these guys to go to a meeting and decide your future for you, and you're under that illusion that the sovereign national conference will solve your problem? Forget, let's have a revolution first. And after the revolution, we micromanage our future on ourselves. Because after the revolution, the true people who fought for it will be able to step forward, and the guys who are bad will be out of town. Would have driven all the crazy buttheads out of town.
Let's take Osas, and then we'll take Nashua, and then we'll come to Justice.
For me, I think that the future of Nigeria rests in the hands of its people. And I think that the more we can organize ourselves together to demand better governance from our weak current government structure, the better for us. I don't actually see what a revolution would do. Is it that we want a revolution to topple the government?
Absolutely. The topple, the cabal, the government, anybody that is there today, will be toppled. That's what revolutions do.
Revolution can take the form of what you're describing. Yeah. It can also take the form of what you're describing. A revolution is about people becoming engaged and going out.
I don't think that a revolution to topple the government is the solution. I think a revolution to force the current government to put together.
In the first place, you are calling it a government. You didn't win an election. No, it's true. These guys just want an inflated
I think that an increased citizen demand on the current government to put together structures that will make future governments perform better. To put together
That's the
like laws, processes that will make sure that the next time we have people elected, they are truly representative. I think if we can make that demand of the current government through increased citizen action, then we have some hope.
You have the reformist school of thought, you know, it's the World Bank, people saying we reform, we change. Reform is not going to change Nigeria. We've practiced it before. We tried to go to election. In fact, this last election in 2011 was a perfect election during the daytime. It was at night that they changed the figures, you know, because usually they would do the rigging during the day and you don't even expect the results at night. This time they allowed people to come around, they voted, and in the southwest, and in the southeast and the south, the president was getting 100% of the votes in 2 regions, and that was how they won the election. So the reform school of thought has not worked. It's not going to work. That's why a revolution, you see, before we used to be afraid of revolution, but it has happened in Tunisia, it's happened in Egypt. Why are we afraid of it? America had Occupy Wall Street. That's some form of revolution too.
What is the current result of Tunisia and Egypt?
Okay, so
what are you talking about?
You know,
did you see the Egyptian former president locked out?
And doing better right now.
Well,
they have a chance there.
They have a chance to be better. They're going to have elections.
I think the future will tell.
Okay, just 1 second. 1 second. Hold on. Okay, Kalechi, what was your thought?
For me, I actually believe that things in Nigeria to the point that it does require revolution. The form that revolution takes, I don't think necessarily has to be violent or like, you know, but it may very well end up having to be that.
You got it. Yep.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about a question.
No, I'm not done.
I'm
I'm not done. I just thought he was adding to it. But,
okay.
But anyway. I mean, I'm of the reformist school, but I'm the person also who is hoping that we could actually have people take a stand when the government sent the military out and say, you know what, no, you know, this isn't going to work this time, and people say that they're not going to accept what the government is pushing onto them, and that did not happen. People went home, and then people said, we're going to protest by staying in our houses. And then people said, well, okay, fine. We're going to protest by not showing up to work. And then eventually people were like, okay, fine, we'll just show up to work. And they basically got bullied out of...
No, don't get that wrong. It was the Labour move. It was Nigerian Labour Congress that sold out on them on that. Get that clear.
No, there are many levels. No, there are many levels of selling out because as far as I'm concerned,
Nigeria is an informal economy. You know, if you don't go out, you don't eat.
No, hold on. In Tunisia, it was one man. He immolated himself. Yeah. That was it, and it started a revolution. As far as I'm concerned, the labor unions can do whatever they want to do. But if one Nigerian stood in front, like literally, I was sitting there. I was like, is someone going to go in front of one of these military police people and say, "What am I doing wrong? Why are you standing in front of me?"
That's why you should do it. Why not you?
No, I was here.
It is not our nature.
Okay, I was here. No, because the funny thing about it is, I do have that side of me, which is not something my parents are happy about, and that's probably why they're happy I'm in New York. But I did not like the idea of people being bullied and oppressed out of speaking their minds and taking a stand against what I felt they had a legitimate right to speak against.
So all
that brings to my point that no one believes Nigeria, no one believes in the country. That's why I raised the point that revolution will not take place in Nigeria. We don't trust each other. Okay, the West don't trust the North don't trust the East. So there's suspicion. When they move in the East, they will sabotage it in the West. When they move in the North, the West will sabotage it. So it won't take place, it won't happen.
Okay, so Carl, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. In the interest of time, we have about 5 minutes and we have a number of questions. So I'm going to take the first one, which was Nashua, and then we're going to come to Jessica, and then we're going to come to you, and then you, and then you. So Nashua, go.
And my question is really brief. So most of the panelists have talked about, representation, and it seems like representation is very tied to tribal identity and in the region you come from. But I'm assuming that most people can agree that that's part of the problem, is that there is a lot of mistrust across regions and across different ethnic groups within Nigeria. What do you see as the potential for national unity, and is there a leader in your mind in the country who is advocating to move past just regional representation and take it more to a national level so that people can see and have hope for Nigeria as a whole?
Can I? If I may, thank you for the question, but I think the chance of that is very slim. as we speak right now, Nigeria is an illiterate society. Even with their PhD, many of them have their PhD, whatever, but yet their thinking or mentality, I'm sorry to say this, is still like someone in the street, very corrupt. Both those in power and those who are the population are corrupt. So you can't fight corruption with corruption, like I mentioned earlier on. So to me, again, we have to go back to our regions or start with a national conference. We can't hold a national sovereign conference to discuss whether we want to be together or not. We're not moving forward. First of all, there's no constitution. It was military edict under military dictatorship for how many years? For 40-something years, military was running the society or the country. So they came with what we call edict, and they call it constitution. We have no constitution to start with.
So you're saying there are no parties or I mean, I know corruption prevails, but in every society, I think maybe the optimist in me wants to say that hopefully there are people who are willing to stand up and say, we don't want to take this. I mean, we saw it in the strike that happened.
What they have in common?
What
they have in common? What they have in common is corruption. That's the only thing they have in common.
I just want to answer. But we're trying to. Can I just answer Nashwa's question?
Yeah,
I can't really name one leader in Nigeria that represents like national unity that is advocating. And even if I knew, I wouldn't want to name names. But I believe I advocate for national unity, and I know a number of people that do. So what I hope for is that we will create a critical mass, and that there will be a turning point eventually. So I'm one. Okay. I hope the others on the panel will join.
We will support you.
Let me just jump in there by saying this quickly, that I don't agree that every Nigerian is corrupt. You know, we've had examples of Nigerians who have actually outed Western corrupt leaders. We have two now in the UK who outed, you know, corrupt corporations. But
who's that?
No, I'll tell you. You can check on Guardian of the UK. Two people. One of them is Osita Uba, who's actually from the East, and there's a Yoruba guy recently. And what he did was to whistleblow on companies that were cheating on the UK government. So these are Nigerians, right? You know, but you can also see the ones that are doing 419, and you get the letters in your email every day. I get it from credit card companies too, from here, 419 letters. So, but the point I want to make very quickly about, you see, the issue of unity or no unity in Nigeria is what the leadership uses whenever it wants to divide the Nigerian people. They did it during this last strike. The Jonathan regime started going around, that is the president now, saying that, you know, the Yorubas or the Northerners want to remove Jonathan from power. That's why they are fighting on oil. But you see, I asked a friend of mine in Bayelsa, I said, do you buy gas for less than what they buy in Lagos? No, it's actually, gas is more expensive in the Niger Delta region than in Lagos. Because they don't have gas stations in the Niger Delta region where all of Nigeria oil comes from. So they will use this as a tool to I'm not saying that there are no tribal differences. But you see, when Nigerians find themselves outside of Nigeria, they find themselves in a comfort zone when things are okay. They don't even want to bear Nigerian names. They, you know, we used to call them Jumbo, the people who came, you know, who used to live in the UK and came because they hate to assume the Nigerian identity. I went to university with a lot of people who didn't want to speak their language. You know, we call them Ajebota. They don't want to be heard to have the intonation of their tribal language because they don't like it. They love to be Nigerians. But that is not to say that Nigeria works because of that. So the point I'm making is that if Nigeria were to be working, if there were employment, if people had food to eat, if there is dignity and respect for human rights in Nigeria, people perhaps will forget so many of these things. But people are clinging to whatever can give them any hope for the future. Some people cling to their religion. Some people think that if Biafra comes back, it will be all right for them. And I don't begrudge them. Some people think if the Niger Delta people have their oil, it will be all right for them. But I guarantee you that that will not solve the problem, because when each regions fall apart, all the thieves that used to be at the center will come back to their respective regions and continue stealing until there is punishment for corruption, which is what is absent in Nigeria today.
I agree with you. I agree with the point that you made. The revolution has to start within the regions. You can't have a national revolution. It's not going to happen. Region, we know each other. Now, honestly, I'm being honest to you.
I mean,
I've been on the ground.
I was a national. This last strike was
So-
national. You know, I mean.
So just for time, I'm sorry to cut you
Yeah.
off, but just for time, I'm going to take the next question, which was Jessica's. Go ahead.
This has been great, so I want to thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank
all.
you, thank you.
I really enjoyed this. I think for me, I want to know what will it take to really motivate the people? What will it take? I mean, we're talking about the Arab Spring. People died for that. People died for that.
20 people
Are
died
people-
in this last one in Nigeria.
So what I'm saying is, are people ready to die for this in Nigeria?
Absolutely.
And if they're not ready, what are they ready to do for it?
I could guarantee you that people are ready to die. People did die, and nobody regretted
They were
that.
shot by the police.
Yes, in the Arab Spring too, people were shot by the police.
My
And
friend,
people don't go out of their houses wanting to die for a revolution. They get killed.
you don't want that option. I'm from Liberia.
There
I
you
used to think before the war we wanted revolution. I was one of the few people that, I was a big believer in, right? But when you say you're ready to die, you're looking at 200 million people. We have 3.5 million people. We fought for 14 years.
You had war.
Get
It
ready
wasn't
for
the
30
revolution.
years of civil war in Nigeria, and after, because that system is even more complex than our little Liberia.
My Liberian brother, if we don't have a revolution to cleanse Nigeria, Nigeria is going to war.
No,
It's
I'd
a
rather
natural,
have the
logical
headache
next step we are going to have.
I'd rather face the headache, the day-to-day headache.
You don't
of
want,
trying to build
it's a
this
headache that will lead to
change
war,
my leader.
and Nigeria will overrun Liberia
Yeah.
when
One
that will
second.
happen.
One
That's
second.
education and changing the minds of the citizens and
Who's gonna
you know,
do that?
And like, for example,
It's
you guys
us.
understand how important it is, if the power is centralized with the people, and the people can dictate who their leaders will be, the outcomes of like, or like what the, like the structures of, like rule of law, changing the constitution, as you said. So once people voices, I'd rather spend my time in the headache. You spend 10 years doing that, then 30 years, man, when they
My
kill
brother,
your
I've done it for
when
50
they kill your uncle,
years.
they kill your
They
cousin,
changed the
they kill
constitution
your
last
sister.
year.
You start
Who
seeing
changed
them
it?
dying.
No,
So-
that's
you
what I'm
reverse
saying.
on that-
This
on
doesn't
that-
work.
on that
So,
elsewhere.
just to pause, can I pause for a
They did
second?
amendments.
Get back
That's what it goes to.
to
That's what I'm saying.
Jessica's question. Do you think that the people of Nigeria are ready, regardless of whether the revolution is a peaceful one or a military one? Do you think the people of Nigeria are ready to take action and to?
I think the momentum is building. Yeah, I can't say now that it's at the crescendo, but I think it's building. I don't know how fast we will get to that stage where we all decide that change must come now and we put real pressure on our leaders and we're all going for it. But I think it's building, so the jury's out and let's see how it goes.
Okay, last question.
Can I answer? Can I add to what you just said, if you don't mind?
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. I was the chief mobilization officer. I was when I came here. I came here on a political asylum. I was born here by the UN and United States. That's why I came here in 1996. So I was going from university to university, mobilizing against June 12th MQ Abiola Wanda election. He's from the West. But it collapsed because it was sabotaged. Some of their leaders went and collected money. So let me say this. Revolution is about spilling blood. Nigerians are not ready to die. Nigerians are cowards. Let's be clear. They are big cowards. None of them is ready to come in the street and say, oh, let me kill me. No, they are not ready. Only, how many were killed? How many were shot? They all went back to their properties, to their rooms. None of Nigerians is ready. Nigerians are cowards. None of them is ready to die. You can quote me.
So that's an interesting statement.
I'm not ready to die.
Nana, go ahead. And Rahel had a question.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me 1 second, Rahel.
I just want to say that revolution should be, especially non-violent revolution,
There's no
should
violent
be
revolution.
organized.
Okay.
And if it's not organized by some umbrella organization, it will often lead to a civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of Nigeria, and one of our colleagues said that people have access to weapons, so it's more likely to lead to a civil war than to lead to, some solutions. So, what's your opinion?
I just want
in
to
that?
bring this oxymoron of what he says about Nigerians. Look, we have a country where people strap bombs to themselves and explode themselves every day now. You say they're afraid to die? You see, when you push, wait, they're not from Nigeria, they're Nigerians. Wait, let me just finish. The thing is that, when a revolution is organized and it's going to be fought, it's usually planned peacefully. It's the opposing people who don't